Even 20 years later, the thought that they had been in that small bathroom at the same time was enough to make Leo shake. The night had begun with the kind of heavy, suffocating atmosphere that only a West Virginian summer storm could produce. 13-year-old Leo sat on the living room rug, his back pressed against the sofa, trying to ignore the way the wind was battering the siding of the old house. The power had flickered twice already, and the television was turned up to volume 40 just to drown out the groaning of the oak trees in the backyard. He was alone, a fact that sat in his stomach like a cold stone. His parents were supposed to be back by 9, but a landslide on Route 4 had trapped them on the other side of the valley. Their last phone call had been filled with static and his mother's anxious instructions. Lock the deadbolts, keep the porch light on, and check his blood sugar. Leo looked at the glucose meter on the coffee table. He felt fine, perhaps a little lightheaded, but he attributed that to the anger and adrenaline. He had fought with his father earlier that day, a stupid, arrogant argument about being treated like a child, and now, in the empty house, the silence felt like a punishment. Suddenly, a violent bang echoed from the second floor. Leo froze. He muted the TV. The house groaned under the wind, but then the sound came again. A rhythmic, wooden slamming. It was coming from the master bathroom at the top of the stairs. The window. The latch must have given way under the pressure of the storm. He knew he should leave it. The instructions were to stay downstairs. But the thought of the rain soaking the hardwood floors, ruining the hallway his dad had just refinished, gnawed at him. It was a chance to prove he was not the incompetent child they treated him as. He could fix this. He could handle the house. He stood up, and the room tilted slightly. His vision blurred at the edges, a warning sign he foolishly ignored. He grabbed the flashlight, though the hallway lights were still working, and walked to the foot of the stairs. The air grew colder as he ascended, the temperature dropping with every step. The slamming sound was louder now, aggressive and demanding. At the top of the landing, the hallway was dim. The door to the bathroom was ajar, and he could see the white curtain blowing wildly in the draft. He took a breath, gripped the flashlight tighter, and stepped toward the noise. He had no idea that he was walking directly into a trap that had nothing to do with the wind. The moment Leo crossed the threshold into the bathroom, the drop in temperature hit him physically. The wind was howling through the open window, whipping the shower curtain back and forth and spraying rain across the tile. Leo moved toward the window, but his legs felt heavy, as if he were wading through water. He blinked, trying to clear the sudden static in his vision. His hands were trembling. He recognized the feeling now, the rapid onset of hypoglycemia. The stress and the exertion were burning through his glucose levels faster than he had anticipated. He needed his emergency kit, which was in his bedroom down the hall, but first he had to stop the water. He reached the window, leaning over the bathtub. The sash was slippery with rain. He gripped the handles and pulled down, but the wood was swollen from the humidity. He gritted his teeth, sweat breaking out on his forehead despite the cold draft. "Come on," he whispered, his voice sounding thin and weak in the small room. He put his entire weight into it, finally forcing the window down with a heavy thud. He fumbled with the latch, his fingers numb and clumsy, until the metal clicked into place. The howling wind was instantly muffled, replaced by the heavy, drumming sound of rain against the glass. Silence returned to the room, heavy and oppressive. Leo leaned against the sink for a moment, waiting for the dizziness to pass. The air in the bathroom felt thick. There was a smell, pungent and earthy, like wet soil and old sweat. He wrinkled his nose. He assumed the storm had churned up the mulch in the garden below, or perhaps the drains were backing up. His brain, starved of sugar, could not process the sensory input correctly. It focused only on the immediate relief of silence. He wiped the rain from his face and turned around to leave. As he did, he brushed against the plastic shower curtain. It was drawn closed, hiding the tub. He did not think twice about it. In his house, the curtain was always kept closed. He stood there for a second, right in the center of the small room. The back of his neck prickled. The biological alarm system that predates language and logic was screaming at him. telling him that the space he occupied was not empty. But Leo was 13, sick, and tired. He blamed the spooky atmosphere of the storm. He unlocked the bathroom door, which he did not remember closing, but assumed the wind had slammed shut behind him, and stepped out into the hallway. He needed sugar. Now, Leo stumbled into the hallway, the carpet muffling his footsteps. The dizziness was becoming a roar in his ears. He needed to get to his bedroom, grab the glucose tablets from his nightstand, and stabilize. He took 3 steps toward his room, then stopped. The hallway light cast long shadows, but it illuminated the carpet clearly enough. There, leading from the top of the stairs and disappearing under the bathroom door he had just exited, were dark, wet patches. Leo stared at them, his mind sluggishly trying to connect the dots. The roof was not leaking. He crouched down, touching one of the spots. It was mud. Thick, gritty mud. He looked at the pattern. They were footprints. Large, heavy boot prints. They started at the stairs, went down the hall, and turned into the bathroom. Leo stood up, his heart hammering against his ribs so hard it hurt. He looked at the bathroom door he had just pulled shut. He looked at the floor in front of it. There were footprints going in. There were no footprints coming out. The realization hit him with the force of a physical blow, clearing the fog of his low blood sugar for one terrifying second. When Leo had entered the bathroom, the floor inside had been wet from the rain, masking the mud. But the intruder had not left. He replayed the last 2 minutes in his head. He had leaned over the bathtub to close the window. He had stood there catching his breath. He had smelled that wet, earthy odor, the shower curtain. He had stood inches from it. He had brushed against it. The person was standing in the bathtub, behind the white plastic sheet, holding their breath while Leo struggled with the latch. They had watched his silhouette through the thin plastic. They were still there. A sound from behind him made his blood freeze. The latch of the bathroom door clicked. Slowly, agonizingly slowly, the door handle began to turn. Terror, pure and primal, flooded Leo's system. It was not the kind of fear you see in movies. It was a paralyzing, cold chemical dump. But beneath the fear, the survival instinct kicked in. He knew he could not fight. He was a skinny, diabetic 13-year-old on the verge of passing out. If the man in the bathroom wanted to hurt him, Leo would be dead in seconds. He did not scream. He did not run down the stairs. He knew he'd never make it to the front door before the man caught him. Leo bolted silently into his own bedroom, just 5 feet away. He did not go for the door lock. The key was missing, a safety precaution his parents insisted on. Instead, he grabbed his medical kit from the nightstand and threw himself into the closet. The closet in his room had a secret. Years ago, during a renovation to combine 2 rooms, a small triangular void had been left behind the drywall. Leo had discovered a loose panel in the back of the closet that led to this crawlspace. It was tight, dusty, and filled with fiberglass insulation, but it was invisible. He scrambled through the clothes, pushed the panel aside, and squeezed his body into the dark cavity. He pulled the panel back into place just as he heard his bedroom door creak open. Leo curled into a ball in the pitch black, shaking so violently his teeth chattered. He bit down on his own arm to stifle the sound. He fumbled in the dark with his kit, ripping open a packet of glucose gel and squeezing it into his mouth, praying it would work fast enough to keep him from slipping into a coma. He heard heavy, wet boots on the hardwood floor of his bedroom. Thud, thud, thud. The intruder was not rushing. He was taking his time. The footsteps stopped by the bed. The mattress springs groaned. The man was sitting down. Leo held his breath until his lungs burned. He could hear the man breathing. A wet, raspy sound, agitated and distinct. Then, the footsteps moved toward the closet. Leo squeezed his eyes shut. He heard the closet door slide open. He heard the hangers scraping against the metal rod as the man pushed his clothes aside. The smell of wet earth and stale sweat drifted through the cracks of the panel. The intruder was inches away, separated only by a thin piece of plywood. Leo's hand gripped a screwdriver he had left in the crawl space weeks ago, though he knew it was useless. He waited for the panel to be ripped away. He waited to die. But then, a new sound cut through the house. Blue light flashed through the cracks of the crawlspace, illuminating the dust motes. A siren chirped, short and loud, right outside the front window. Then came the sound of car doors slamming and voices shouting. His parents. And the police. The intruder in the closet froze. Suddenly, the man moved with terrifying speed. The clothes were thrown back. The footsteps pounded across the bedroom floor, then the sound of the bedroom window sliding open. A heavy thud on the porch roof below, followed by the crunch of gravel. Leo! Leo, are you in here? It was his father's voice, panic-stricken and loud. Leo tried to shout, but his voice cracked. He kicked the panel out, tumbling from the closet onto the floor, weeping uncontrollably. Later, the police found the muddy boots prints. They found the open window in the bathroom and the open window in the bedroom. They pieced it together. A drifter, suspected of a string of burglaries, had been using the dense forest behind the house to move unseen. He had been living in the woods. They told Leo he was lucky. They said the man probably just wanted valuables. But Leo knew the truth. The man had passed the jewelry box on the dresser. He had ignored the laptop on the desk. He had sat on Leo's bed. He had checked the closet. When the police dusted for prints in the bathroom, they found a perfect handprint on the tiles inside the shower, right at eye level. The man had been steadying himself, leaning forward, listening to Leo breathe on the other side of the curtain. Leo survived, but the boy who had arrogantly wanted to be left alone died that night. Even now, as a grown man living in a high-rise apartment with 24-hour security, Leo never closes a bathroom door without checking behind the shower curtain first. And sometimes, when it rains, he can still smell that wet, earthy scent, and he knows that safety is just an illusion we build to keep the monsters out.